Good morning, everybody. Our brains are very interesting. I read somewhere that our brains are wired to focus on negative experiences as a survival instinct. We remember vividly times we experience pain or feel threatened because this reminds us to avoid these things in order to stay alive and to stay healthy. Now, while this is a necessary reflex for survival, sometimes we focus too much on these negative experiences. For example, I bet you can remember something bad that someone said about you or did to you years ago as if it happened yesterday. But for some reason, when someone says something nice about us or does something good for us, we remember it momentarily and then seem to forget all about it. And what happens is, sometimes we dwell on these bad experiences or negative words about us, and pretty soon we ourselves become bitter. Or as people my age would say, we get salty. And maybe we take this bitterness and saltiness and turn it towards other people around us. This is a nasty cycle. But unfortunately, this is the way most of the world around us functions. But today, on the other hand, we hear a message from Christ. We hear a message from Christ that we will not hear from anyone else. Today, Christ says to us, "You are the light of the world." Now let's stop here and just think about this one sentence. We have established that there is much darkness in the world. Sometimes all the darkness and negativity drags us down to the point where we think we are no better than the darkness ourselves. But Christ tells us today that we are not just valuable as people, we are not simply important, but we are, by virtue of being created by God, we are the light of the entire world. In other words, we have the power to drive out darkness because we ourselves are light. Now, sometimes our light might get a little covered up, like a headlight that gets covered in mud or a very dusty light bulb. Sometimes we get dragged down through either our own sins or the negative experiences we dwell on excessively. But no matter how much darkness there is in the world, this darkness will never overtake the light of Christ within us. I'm sure many of you remember going to Greek school as a kid. Well, at the seminary, I had a class called Biblical Greek. It was essentially Greek school for seminarians. And one of the things we had to do in this class was memorize the first chapter of the Gospel of John in Greek. This is the Gospel we read on Easter Sunday, a very important Gospel passage. So our teacher would have us do the whole repeat after me thing. She would begin, "En archi no logos," and the whole class of about 30 of us would repeat, "En archi no logos." And all semester we would do the same exercise with the same gospel passage. But each time, at verse 5, something interesting would happen. Verse 5 starts, "Και το φως εν τη σκοτία φαίνει," which means, "and the light in the darkness shines." And the next part of this verse, my professor would read this like this, "Και η σκοτία αυτό ου κατέλαβεν." And all 30 of us seminarians would repeat back, "Και η σκοτία αυτό ου κατέλαβεν." As you can imagine, this ου κατέλαβεν became an often repeated joke amongst myself and my classmates. But my professor's emphasis on this line just hit me recently as I was preparing for this sermon. This line, John chapter 1, verse 5, means altogether, The light in the darkness shines, and the darkness cannot overtake it. This is what the dramatic ou katelaven means. In the end, the light of Christ, the light that is in all of us, will never stop shining in darkness. So no matter what happens to us, or what someone says about us, if we remember that the light is in us, these assaults of darkness will not be able to shake us. So now that we know that each one of us is a source of light, is a source of goodness, is a source of love in the world, we understand what Christ calls us to do in his words that follow a bit later in his message today. He says, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Notice Christ uses the words, let your light shine, as opposed to turn your light on. The light of God and Christ is already within us. And through our actions, we allow this already existing light to shine on to others. Now, what does it look like when our light shines before others? It's simple, really. People who shine their light in the world are people who act completely and only out of love. Now, if you think hard enough, I'm sure you can think of a few people that you've come across in your own life who have shown you nothing but love. These are people who want only the best for you, and they show you love with no strings attached. These people are rare, unfortunately. In fact, you can probably count the number of these people you've known like this on one hand, maybe two if you're lucky. Today's gospel message is a call to be like one of these people. That is what it means to be the light of the world and to let that light shine to others. This message comes at an interesting time for me personally, as one of these people that I used to count on one of my hands as a person of love has recently passed away. This person was a woman at my home parish where I worked previously. Every single time I would see this woman, she'd always have a heartfelt word of encouragement for me, either about the work I was doing at the church or my progress with chanting, whatever it was. And even after I left my old church and I began working here, this woman would keep tabs on me and send me emails from time to time to give me encouraging feedback about one of my sermons. I can remember even all the way back when I was in college and I would come and visit my home parish, this woman would always be encouraging me and supporting me in everything that I did. In a world where people can choose to either insult or to complain or to criticize or to shame, this woman chose to always express love. No matter what else was going on in my life, or in the world for that matter, I always knew what to expect from this woman. From her, I could always expect a message of love, a word of encouragement. I could always expect a ray of light from her. Now, I'm sure each one of you has or has had at one point a person like this in your life. And when we think about how these people make us feel, we understand how powerful Christ's message is in today's gospel. He is asking all of us to be like this woman, to be people that others can rely on for a message of love, a word of encouragement, to be people who bring only love and light to others. Imagine if the world was filled only with people like this. Jesus did not come to guilt us into spreading the light of God. He didn't come to shame us into being good people. He came down to love us, to forgive us, and to show us by his example what it means to be full of the light of God. There is perhaps no better example of this than when, in his worst moment of suffering on the cross at the hands of the very people he came to save, he lifted his voice to God and he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Even in his darkest moment, Christ displayed love for those who persecuted him. The light of God shines directly out of Jesus Christ, and it shines also inside of each one of us. It is up to us then to let that light shine through to others. There is enough darkness in the world. It seems that most choose to wallow in this darkness. This is not a new concept or development prevalent only in recent times. We see this sad fact written even in the book of John chapter 3, verse 19, which reads, "The light has come into the world, but men loved darkness more than light." When we consider this, it is no surprise that our world is the way that it is. So while the rest of the world wallows in darkness, we are called to spread light. And from the examples of people in your life who you know that have shown you only love, you can see the positive effect you can have on those around you. When we consider this, why would we ever want to be any other way? By virtue of being created by God, we have the light of God already within us. All we have to do is let it shine. Amen.